The Philippine economy is growing but still missing its mark, with GDP expected at about 5.3% this year, below the government's targets. The peso remains under pressure and investor sentiment is cautious. Yet even with sentiment soft, investors are eyeing new opportunities led by the planned Maynilad IPO, the biggest listing in 4 years. So how can investors find returns in a volatile market? And could this IPO be the spark that rebuilds confidence? Joining us now is Zerge Zandueta, the portfolio manager of Pole Investment Management's Strategic Growth Fund. Hi, Zerge. Thanks for being here with us.
Hi, Mikey. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Yeah, good to have you. Zerge, the PSCI has been struggling to stay above the 6,000 level amid weak growth and steady foreign outflows. This despite valuations, being very attractive at 9 times PE. There are very few takers. Why so, Zerge?
Yeah. I think what's going on at the moment really is sentiment towards the Philippines is just really depressed at the moment, bordering apathetic already at this point. And as mentioned earlier, a lot of these corruption allegations that's going around is not helping. What is noticeable in terms of how the markets have panned out recently is our other neighboring countries have actually been going up already. So that tells you there's a regional risk-on impulse that's going on that's powered by the Fed rate cuts, but the Philippines is unable to actually join the party. So that tells you something idiosyncratic or relating to us is going on. And if you look at what's new, at least over the past, let's see, over the past 3 months, I would say it's really these questions on governance that's putting a lid on how our market's performing.
Yeah. Okay. Drilling down into those 2 points that you mentioned, the comparison with the regional peers and the governance concerns, let's talk about those regional comparisons and what they have to do with market depth. We're seeing markets like Vietnam and Thailand outpacing us with stronger trading activity surge. Vietnam trades over $1 billion a day. That's 10 times more than us. How much of this gap between ours and theirs is because of fundamentals, and how much of it is because of the governance concerns that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think there are actually several things that go into that. I think as of late, probably you could say the governance concerns are really playing in. In terms of fundamentals, the sad thing about the Philippines is that corporate earnings growth over the past first half and some early returns we're seeing as of the third quarter also are a bit below what analysts had expected coming into the year. But a portion of that also as to why our volumes and trading activity have lagged our regional peers over the years is also because of the number of listings. So I think earlier you were mentioning Maynilad. In general, if you look at the complexion of the Philippine market, when I joined and started investing, we had about 250 stocks that are listed in the main bourse that you could buy and sell. That number has roughly stayed the same over the past 10 to 12 years. Whereas if you look at countries like, as you mentioned, Thailand, Vietnam, easily these countries have more than 700 listed names and they're adding more and more by the year. So actually, we also need to have these new companies list so that there's additional, I guess maybe you could call it excitement or at least attention that market players could have.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's always the same names.
That's right. We've got one up ahead, the Maynilad IPO. IPO looks like it's going to be the last one for the year. How excited are you about this IPO, Zerge? It's expected to be the biggest in 4 years, but it's also draining liquidity from the broader market. What are your thoughts on this overall?
Yeah. With regards to Maynilad, I think, well, based on what we're hearing from clients, it's something that a lot of retail investors are actually quite enamored about. I think definitely what's attractive there is the prospective dividend yield. So in a market that we're seeing today, wherein it's very tough, you would like to secure that those dividend payments as a form of income. So dividend yield for Maynilad could be anywhere between 5 to 7% on a yearly basis, depending on how much they pay out and the income that they make. We'll see. I think the challenge with Maynilad, as it's about to list, really is the liquidity drain. Given that it is a big IPO and we already have a market that doesn't have a lot of interest, so you could imagine players who would rather actively trade in the market instead of devoting those funds into trading and investing. You have to park it, some of it in Maynilad if you want the exposure there.
Mhm. Okay,
Um,
Zerge, let me ask you about earnings. Earnings fell short of expectations in the first half of the year. Q3 earnings have been trickling in. Are you seeing that same sluggish momentum carry into third quarter earnings based on what's been released thus far?
Yeah. So far, I would say third quarter earnings are just ho hum. So nothing really exciting that's come out so far. So across the board, we're seeing so far mostly just around mid single digit earnings growth, with a few exceptions like Meralco. But if we're just going to stay at that mid single earnings growth type of trajectory, like especially even heading into next year, um, I think that's something that might not necessarily excite a lot of investors at this point.
Yeah, speaking of being ho-hum and not exciting a lot of investors, economists project GDP growth at just about 5.3% for this year. This slower growth, this weaker capital formation, the cuts in government spending due to the corruption fallout, that seemed to hit the demand for luxury purchases across retail and property, the retail and property sectors. Zerge, can you connect the dots for us?
Yeah. Of course, it's really hard to pin it down exactly, right? But um, yeah, one immediate, like I'd say, impact that we could probably make a theory in terms of how things could pan out because of all of the corruption fallout is, yeah, less spending on luxury goods, right? Given that there's going to be greater scrutiny all around.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as you just mentioned there earlier, so like of course we cannot verify this for sure, but maybe the market is thinking this way. Like let's say if you look at one of the
Yeah.
stocks actively traded, which is Ayala Land,
Yeah.
property stock, it's fallen by a lot. Naturally, when central banks cut interest rates, that's a period in time wherein you should see property names recover.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, but
Yeah.
maybe
Taking a
later.
look at Ali now, Zerge, it's
Yeah,
trading to the downside. It's at 2015, which is very close to its 52-week low of 2010. Weakness in Ayala. This is a leader in high-end residential. Is
yeah.
this, do you think, because demand is going to be taking a hit because of all the spending cuts, given the corruption, corruption allegations all around?
Yeah, that's possibly how the market is looking at it. But given how much it's fallen and how cheap valuations are at the moment, I actually view this move in Ayala Land more as an opportunity for the long term. But definitely in terms of the numbers, if they're really going to be impacted, we'll have to see. I think what's good in terms of what we're seeing with Ayala Land and a lot of the other major big caps that we have in the market is we're seeing a lot of corporate buybacks. So if there's really one big positive, I would say that we're seeing in the Philippine market is that the companies themselves, these big caps are actually buying back their shares.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's okay.
yeah.
That's good. They need to keep their prices up. Zerge at 59.45 right now, down by 0.3%. Are we close to finding a floor?
For the market, I would say we are probably nearing the floor, if it's not the floor just yet. That's another positive I could see, at least in terms of the Philippine market. Maybe you could argue it's not going up. But personally speaking, I think the downside might also already be capped, given that a lot of the sellers that have probably wanted to exit our market have already gone. Some of the things that we've been hearing recently is that long only funds, um, these big investors that came in the market, like I say over the past decade, they've also been exiting already recently. So if you think about it, like a lot of the foreign investors have actually left the country. So that makes it for that makes an environment wherein I could say the market is probably light. You
Yeah.
just really need a solid catalyst for it to start going higher.
Yeah. Goes back to the last word that what you used earlier to describe the market as ho hum. No buyers, but also we need to point out that there haven't been much sellers.
Yeah.
Okay, Zerge Zandueta, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.